Seth MacFarlane made it no secret that Family Guy was heavily inspired by The Simpsons. A bumbling blue-collar dad, 3 children, and a beautiful, supportive wife by his side. The Flintstones was the first primetime cartoon that carried this trope, which of course is another iconic animated show that Seth just loved. In his mind, Lois mirrored Marge and Wilma in a lot of ways at the beginning of Family Guy, in that they acted as the straight woman compared to the wild antics of their husbands. Therefore, Lois was a calm voice of reason as her whirlwind of a family performed around her, making way for more wacky characters, Peter, Stewie, and Brian, to take the stage. She only really seemed to come alive to step in and scold her husband or to be a caring mother. In a way, she was the only factor that brought these strange characters together to resemble some kind of family. And without her, it would be a complete loony bin. But don't be fooled into thinking that she would stay this way forever. It's a far cry from how she'll treat them later on in the show. In this video, I'll be diving into the 23-year evolution of Family Guy's Lois Griffin, from season 1 all the way to today, to pinpoint how and when she went from a kind and caring family gal to a sadistic and vengeful mother. Basically, what went wrong? Just like Marge, you can't have a show run for so many seasons without giving Lois a bit more to do. And Family Guy took even more pointers from The Simpsons by literally copying Marge's gambling addiction storyline and giving it to Lois. The writers knew they needed to introduce more interesting elements to her character, and ones that were individual to her. And so she was shown to have a kinky side, specializing in the art of S&M. She was also soon known to be a bit of a party girl. When Lois takes Meg on a road trip for spring break in the episode of Fish Out of Water, Lois used it as an excuse to go absolutely wild, and it showed us that when she's not confined to the role of a traditional sitcom housewife, she can get just as drunk and crazy as Peter Griffin. But she didn't throw her mother towel in altogether. She also guided Meg to let loose and to just have a bit of fun. It was a warm bonding moment between mother and daughter, and it's one we will have to treasure as they would become fairer and fewer between. Throughout the entire season, we have been privy to Lois's simmering rage that would occasionally boil over and erupt onto her family. In the episode of very special Family Guy Freaking Christmas, Lois goes off the deep end when her incompetent family can't do anything she asks. And when she finds out that they couldn't even buy paper towels, she snaps. Embarking on her not-so-festive rampage, she pushes George Bailey off a bridge, knocks the block off poor Frosty before setting him aflame. She then proceeds to climb the town's Christmas tree to remove the star, but is shot with a tranquilizer dart, spending Christmas in a drug-induced state. Unfortunately for those around her, this unhinged aspect of her character will become far more prevalent as the show goes on. It has to be said that season 3 really set the stage for Lois, seeing as season 4 had the most Lois-centric episodes, furthering our insight into her more wild and darker side. She gets a taste for stealing in the episode Breaking Out is Hard to Do, and quickly becomes a fully fledged kleptomaniac, satisfying her high with a good old cigarette on the arm.
I'm alive!
This addiction became so severe, she was thrown into jail, and whereas before it would normally be left up to her to help her family now had to look after her by helping her break out of jail and go on the run. Her addictive personality only spiraled in the very next episode, Model Misbehavior, in that she becomes a model and falls heavily into the party and drug lifestyle. And it seems that with Lois's character, when she gets a taste for something, she takes it that bit further and doesn't know when to stop. With the darkening of her character, she in turn moved away from being a caring parent to a hugely neglectful one, with her daughter Meg taking the brunt of the abuse. In the earlier seasons, as explained, the two shared elements of a mother-daughter bond. When Meg lost her confidence, it was Lois who boosted her self-esteem in the form of shopping and a snazzy new makeover. But this quickly deteriorated dramatically. In fact, I can't think of many positive episodes that focused on their relationship after this point. One of the worst things she did to Meg was hit on her boyfriend, and they were even about to dial up to 11 right on the family couch until Meg caught them out. Even Lois's apology was an awful backhanded one, with Lois saying that she could have taken him if she wanted him.
Clearly, if I wanted him, I could have him.
She then pinned the blame on Peter, saying that it was his fault that she swayed and acted this way. This not only shows that she can be an awful mother, but one who is incapable of accepting personal blame. On more than one occasion, Lois has also suggested that Meg should end herself, placing a bottle of Ambien next to her depressed daughter as she sidled away slyly.
I'm gonna look the other way and whatever happens, happens.
So, let's pause the brakes now. Let's compare that to possibly their closest counterpart, Marge and Lisa. Now, the yellow animated mother and daughter have had their fair share of ups and downs, but it always ends with them settling their differences and overall building upon their bond. This is poignant in season 33's Lisa's Belly, in that Marge makes a remark towards Lisa's weight, unknown to the fact it causes her daughter's self-esteem to dwindle into feeling ashamed of her body. But by the end, Lisa openly communicates to her mother that her words have affected her, explaining that an offhand comment can linger in someone's mind for a long time.
I never realized how much power my words have.
This even made Marge reflect on her own upbringing and realised how much it hurt her daughter. It ultimately resulted in an apology and promised to be more considerate. Now, let's compare that to the like of Seashell's Seahorse Party, where Meg finally unloaded her pent-up frustrations on her mother.
Not only are you not the perfect mother, you're the furthest thing from.
Yes, Lois realises how awful of a mother she has been, but then goes back to mistreating her daughter by the end of that very episode, having learned absolutely nothing.
Meg, how could you put us all through that?
Her poor parenting skills don't just stop at Meg. She once ran over Stewie, and even before thinking about taking him to hospital, she thought of covering it up and framing it on someone else.
Peter, we have to cover this up.
Yeah, but what?
And in the most recent season, she forced her baby into the toilet just so he could reach a pill for her. And if not for Brian, she would have certainly drowned Stewie. Like all of my videos on my channel, I like to get your insight into the shows we love. And in a poll, I asked you who's the worst parent out of Peter and Lois, also giving you the option of both of them. And with over 115,000 votes, 80% of you selected both. The two mistreat Meg in their own despicable ways, whereas Peter physically beats Meg, whether that be with a baseball bat or by dragging her around the house by a horse, Lois verbally and emotionally abuses Meg with cruel, manipulative mind games.
Wow, this looks just like my room at home.
Yeah, except for all the trophies and pictures of friends.
One comment that you guys said that really stood out to me was, Lois is smart enough to know better, meaning that she is more evil. Which is a great point. Peter is shown to be mentally handicapped, and while that certainly doesn't excuse his behaviour, it is worthwhile to note. Whereas Lois is shown to be relatively intelligent and socially aware, aka she knows exactly what she's doing. And it has to be said, I've even noticed that Peter is much kinder to Meg specifically whenever Lois isn't around. But when she is, Peter switches to douchebag dad mode, almost suggesting that it's Lois maintaining the Meg bashing. As well as her parenting methods, her marriage to Peter also declined.
Do you think maybe we should think about getting it?
It is what it is. Let's just get Stewie to college and go from there.
Earlier on in the show, Peter was always portrayed as an idiot, and while Lois would always disapprove of his dumb antics, it was still clear that they at least still loved each other. But now their detest for each other is forever mounting, even leading on to Lois having a number of affairs. Now, the show does sometimes try to remind us that they do have love for each other in their own dysfunctional way, but how are we, the audience, supposed to get behind this when the couple constantly bring up how miserable they are?
Yep, you're unhappy. Yep, who's Greg? Yep, there's Greg.
Like a lot of characters in Family Guy, Lois has suffered extreme Flanderization, where her negative traits have been dialed up to 11. In season 17, to throw it away, Lois's self-help book recommends clearing the clutter by ridding yourself of things that no longer bring you joy. And like a lot of things in her life, her addictive personality takes over and she goes that bit too far, to the point where she clears out her entire family, telling us that her family definitely brings her no joy. Season 19 saw Lois go to the absolute extreme to achieve her goals. Desperate to become the customer of the week at her local coffee shop, she almost kills her barista with a peanut allergy and ties several people up, all of which resulted into her getting arrested and going to prison. And after serving 6 months, she immediately went to a new coffee shop to start the whole thing again.
I must be a pretty good person to give a 5.
This episode perfectly demonstrated her obsessive side. But you know what, despite all of this, I don't hate Lois. And similar to how I explained in Bonnie's timeline, despite her terrible qualities, she at least is more interesting than how she was in the first 2 seasons. Because let's face it, she was a bit of a bore and a carbon copy of all of the TV mums that came before her. She's no longer just a dull, traditional sitcom housewife. She has a distinct personality now. And I have to say that I liked her character best in seasons 3 and 4, where she was still kind of a straight woman, but could also get just as crazy as Peter. And she hadn't yet leaned too far into the worst aspects of her personality. But I've got to know, what's your opinion on Lois Griffin? Do you love her? Do you hate her? Let me know in the comments below.